Hill Davis, and my specific topic is to persuade my audience that there are other alternatives to the death penalty and why I think it should not be supported. The most obvious negative of the death penalty is that it kills people. Our society is so hypocritical. Why do we punish people for killing by killing and call it justice? What if the person being punished never committed the crime and faces death? This has happened all too often. Cameron Todd Willingham was sentenced to death for starting a fire that killed his 3 daughters. Despite the overwhelming evidence of his innocence, he was put to death in 2004, only for later investigations to prove his innocence. Stories like these are found all over the United States. Citizens United for the Alternatives to the Death Penalty stated that when all is said and done, on average, every execution costs the state about $250 million of taxpayer money. I guess justice does have a price, but is it our price to pay? Also, due to different living conditions, the price of accommodating just one death row inmate a year is $90,000 more than someone serving life. It is very important that we know the death penalty began long ago because for most crimes there were no other alternatives since prisons didn't exist until the mid-18th century. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, Britain influenced America's use of the death penalty, but when European settlers arrived, they brought the practice of capital punishment. Today I would like to help you understand some of the negative aspects of the death penalty and encourage you to support its alternative solutions. Now let me explain why the death penalty is a relic of the past and needs to be replaced by other options. The death penalty is not about whether people deserve to die for the crimes they commit. The real question of capital punishment in this country is, do we deserve to kill? The death penalty denies the possibility of redemption, just the same as strapping a murderer to a gurney and injecting them with poison. I'm not speaking of the victim's family, I'm speaking about their own personal journey. It's not about whether we forgive them, but how they learn to forgive themselves. From a religious standpoint, we are taught sacredness of life and the obligation to overcome evil with good. The emphasis in our judicial system should be redemptive rehabilitation and not primitive retribution. Dr. Ernie Goss, professor of economics at Creighton University, revealed and detailed how the costs in capital punishment are fixed and embedded in the policy by law in the Supreme Court. In total, the report shows that keeping the death penalty costs Nebraska approximately $14.6 million annually above what the state cost for life without parole would be. And each additional death penalty arraignment cost the state almost $1.5 million. A study released in the Proceedings of National Academy of Sciences shows that 1 in every 25 people sentenced to death is innocent, says Newsweek. Since 1973, 144 people on death row have been exonerated. As a percentage of all death sentences, that's just 1.6%. If the innocence rate is 4.1%, more than twice the rate of exoneration, the study suggests that the number of innocent people sentenced to death is unknown. Courts do not generally entertain claims of innocence when the defendant is dead. Defense attorneys move on to other cases where clients' lives can still be saved. Yeah. The study is a warning and objective. Look at how we have been successful in acquiring justice. And it raises the ultimate question, do we keep doing this? Equal Justice USA stated, most costs associated with the death penalty never appear as line items in a budget. Instead, they are buried in thick folders full of legal proceedings, and hours are spent by judges, clerks, prosecutors, and other agencies. In the time it takes to pursue just one capital case, law enforcement could investigate, prosecute, solve, and prevent scores of other crimes. The fact of the matter is, the death penalty has not been a proven deterrent, and there are other solutions that don't cause debt, inequality, or loss of innocent lives. We cannot allow our society to be brainwashed into believing that all life is invaluable. The American Civil Liberties Union stated, the death penalty costs more, delivers less, and puts innocent lives at risk. Life without parole provides swift, severe, and certain punishment. It provides justice to survivors of murder victims and allows more resources to be invested in solving other murders and preventing violence. Sentencing people to die in prison is the sensible alternative for public safety and murder victims' families. Life imprisonment is not the easy way out. In the words of William Blake, a lifer, if I try to imagine what kind of death, even a slow one, would be worse than 25 years in the box. And I've tried to imagine it. I can come up with nothing. Dying couldn't take but a short time if you or the state were to kill me. In the shoe, I have died 1,000 eternal deaths. There are so many studies and statistics that support the statement by Matthew Blake, which proves that life imprisonment is a view as more of punishment than the death penalty. However, this is a good solution, but overcrowding seems to be one of the main points giving the death penalty backing, at the risk of killing innocent people. Overcrowding is avoidable. The majority of prisons are not full of murderers, they're full of inmates, usually with drug charges, that have been given excessive sentences. We need to send fewer people to jail for drug crimes, allow them to serve shorter sentences, lower the truth in sentencing requirements, and begin releasing elderly prisoners. We also need to implement more prison programs involving education, drug treatment, and various forms of therapy to help inmates re-enter society. This could resolve a lot of our problems. No one should receive death because a prison has no room. If we can make those things possible, we may begin to see a positive change. But you can't give a man 10 years and send him out on the street without the necessary tools and resources, expecting him to prosper and not reoffend. There was an incident where a person who underwent lethal injection did not die right away. It took more than 30 minutes for him to die from a heart attack. This was traumatic, not only from the person being executed, but also for the people who witnessed it. They saw the man gasping for air and trying to stand. For people who are against the death penalty, this is not a humane thing to do.
Why was he in there?
Moreover, if an inmate is executed and after the execution, a new piece of evidence come out that would otherwise prove the person's innocent, they can never be brought back to life again. As a taxpayer, I don't want this on my conscience. If we implement a change in the process of distributing justice, our society could prosper from the availability of additional resources previously used to put people to death. Funding for the death penalty could be redirected to support expanded services for victims and their families, including grief counseling, funeral costs, school tuition, scholarships, grants for children of murdered victims, paid leave from work or attending court proceedings, crime scene cleanups, emergency funds, medical treatments, and the list goes on. The legal system in most countries, even in the U.S., has flaws. There are many instances where innocent people are sent to jail and convicted of crimes they have not committed, just like the case of the man who was in prison for 30 years for rape. If all people who are convicted of harsh crimes are put to death, many mistakes would be made. By going against the death penalty, we could possibly save innocent lives. The fact that there are guilty people who have committed their crimes should not determine our decision to support death. If you agree that our community should not bear the burden of this expensive and wasteful policy, visit Take Action to support the National Coalition in its efforts to abolish the death penalty in your state and across the country.